I lived in a split-level duplex with my sister, Amanda. The place had two separate entrances, two kitchens, and two sets of everything. She had the lower floor, and I had the upper one. It worked out well since she spent most nights at her boyfriend's place across town. Being 30, I wasn't supposed to be scared of staying home alone, but some nights, when the house settled in odd ways and shadows stretched too long in the corners, unease crept in. That night, I was lounging on the couch, half watching some old horror flick. The dim glow of the television barely reached the far end of the room, where the kitchen and hallway met in a yawning void of darkness. I found myself glancing over my shoulder more often than I cared to admit. Eventually, I shook it off, brushed my teeth, and turned in for the night. Sleep didn't last long. At around 1 a.m., I woke up to a sound from downstairs. A voice. It sounded like Amanda. At first, I thought maybe she had come home unexpectedly, but something felt off. She wasn't knocking or unlocking the door. She was already inside. Still half asleep, I sat up, listening. The voice came again, calling my name. I groggily stepped out into the hall and flicked on the light. The wooden floors creaked as I moved toward the stairs. My heart thumped a little harder when I reached the top, staring down into the unlit foyer below. "Amanda?" I called out. There was no response. But then, something shifted in the darkness, a low shuffle, like feet dragging against the floor. I swallowed and took slow, cautious steps down. The hallway was eerily silent except for the occasional pop and groan of the old house. As I reached the bottom, I fumbled for the light switch. The fluorescent kitchen bulb flickered on weakly, casting a dim glow. No one was there. The small apartment Amanda used was empty, her couch untouched, the kitchen spotless, her bedroom door ajar. I hesitated before stepping inside. The bed was made. No sign of her. A sickly feeling crawled up my spine. Just as I turned to leave, a sharp thump sounded from behind me. I spun around, pulse hammering. Something had fallen in her room. I scanned the space, looking for anything out of place. The dresser, the nightstand, the bookshelves, everything was intact. There was nothing on the floor. I backed away, suddenly desperate to put distance between myself and whatever the hell was going on. Taking the stairs two at a time, I bolted back into my bedroom and locked the door. My hands fumbled for my phone. I called Amanda. No answer. A few minutes later, my phone vibrated. A text from her. "Why are you calling so late?" "I'm at Trevor's." "What's up?" My throat went dry. I forced myself to type a response. "Were you home tonight?" The reply came almost immediately. "No? What?" I stared at the screen, dread curling in my stomach. Downstairs, the floor creaked. Something was moving. I turned off my bedside lamp and slid under the covers, gripping my phone like a lifeline. I strained my ears. A breathless silence stretched between me and the rest of the house. Then, ever so softly, a whisper from outside my door. A perfect imitation of Amanda's voice. "I see you." I bit down on my knuckles to keep from making a sound. My heart pounded against my ribs, each beat louder than the last. I stared at the door, waiting. Minutes passed. Then, the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps retreating down the stairs. I stayed frozen in my bed for what felt like hours, listening to the silence. When morning finally bled through the blinds, I mustered the courage to move. With trembling fingers, I unlocked the door and stepped into the hall. The house was still, empty, but downstairs, Amanda's bedroom door was closed. I knew I had left it open. I never figured out who, or what, had been in the house that night. And I never opened Amanda's door again. Story 2. When I was 16, I had my first real taste of fear. The kind that doesn't leave you. The kind that, even years later, sneaks up on you in the dead of night, making you doubt what's real and what isn't. My mom was a single parent, working late-night shifts as a nurse. My older brother had left for college the previous year, leaving me alone in our small two-story house more often than not. Most nights, I didn't mind. I'd stay up watching movies or playing video games, enjoying the independence. That night wasn't any different. It was a chilly Friday evening in late autumn, the kind where the wind howled against the house like a living thing. My friend Jessica had come over earlier, and we'd watched a couple of movies in my room before she had to leave. Her parents were strict about curfews, so by 11 p.m., I was alone again. I grabbed some chips, flopped onto my bed, and turned on my TV. A mindless sitcom played in the background while I scrolled through my phone. Outside, the The wind rattled the old wooden fence in our backyard. Then I heard it. A slow, deliberate scraping sound coming from the back deck. I froze, phone still in my hand. It wasn't a branch scraping against the siding or the wind playing tricks on my ears. It was rhythmic, steady, like someone dragging something heavy across the wood. I got up, walked to my bedroom window, and peeked through the blinds. A figure sat in one of the deck chairs below. At first, I thought it was Jessica, maybe playing a joke on me. But as my eyes adjusted to the dim light, a sickening realization set in. This wasn't Jessica. The person was sitting too still, too rigid, and they were staring directly up at my window. I couldn't make out a face, only a silhouette against the dim glow of the porch light. My breath caught in my throat. Slowly, I backed away from the window, my heart thudding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I grabbed my phone, texting Jessica frantically. "Tell me you didn't just come back to my house." A few seconds later, she responded. "What? No? Why?" I felt ice crawl through my veins. Still, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a neighbor? Maybe someone got lost? Maybe. I took another step back. A sharp knock on my window. I screamed, dropping my phone. My body went cold as I stared, wide-eyed, at the figure outside. The knocking came again. Slow, rhythmic, like he was playing with me. I forced myself to move, crawling to the floor where my phone had fallen. My fingers trembled as I unlocked it. Call 911. Call 911. Call 911. But before I could dial, something changed. The knocking stopped. I dared to look up, barely breathing. The figure was gone. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, from downstairs, the creak of the back door handle. I bolted out of my room, heart slamming against my ribs. I ran to the hallway, listening. Silence. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe. The front doorknob rattled. My stomach flipped. Someone was trying to get inside. I backed up slowly, my mind racing. The back door had been locked, I was sure of it. But had I locked the front? I wanted to call the police, but something in me, some irrational, terrified part, thought that if I made a sound, it would push him to act faster. So I waited. The doorknob stopped shaking. Silence. I strained my ears, listening. A soft click echoed through the house. I sucked in a sharp breath. That wasn't the front door. That was the basement door. The one inside the house. My vision blurred with panic. There was no way. No possible way. The basement door was locked. It was always locked. Then footsteps. Slow. Careful. Inside. I ran to my room, slamming the door shut and locking it. I pressed my back against it, my breath ragged. Then I heard it. A whisper. Right outside my door. "I see you." I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just clamped a hand over my mouth, praying, begging that whatever was out there would leave. The whisper came again. This time closer. "Let me in." I reached for my phone, fumbling to dial 911. My fingers barely worked. The ringing felt like it went on forever. Finally, a voice. 911. "What's your emergency?" Before I could answer, the whisper stopped. Silence. I listened. Strained. Nothing. Then, a loud, crashing bang against my door. I screamed, scrambling backward. "Someone's in my house." I gasped into the phone. The operator asked me something, but I barely heard it. Another bang. Then silence. No footsteps. No more whispers. Just the distant sound of sirens approaching. I stayed frozen, clutching the phone like a lifeline. When the police arrived, I barely managed to unlock my door. They searched the house. The basement. The backyard. Every closet. No one. But the back door? It was wide open. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was out of place. But on the deck, sitting neatly on the table, was something I hadn't noticed before. A single, rusted knife. The police didn't find fingerprints. They couldn't explain how anyone got inside. But I knew. And some nights, when I'm alone, I still hear it. The whisper. "Let me in." Story 3. I was 13 when I learned that being home alone wasn't just an opportunity for independence, it was a test of how well you could survive the night. My parents were called away unexpectedly that evening. My older brother, Jason, was supposed to be home, but, of course, he had snuck out to meet his friends. I didn't really care. It wasn't the first time. The house felt strangely empty that night, like something had sucked all the warmth out of it. I tried to ignore the weird sensation creeping over me as I sat in the living room playing video games. I was so focused on the screen that it took me a while to notice the sound. The faint creak of the front door opening. At first, I thought maybe Jason had come home early, but when I called out, no one answered. A strange pressure built in my chest. I turned off the TV, straining to listen. Silence. I swallowed hard and got up from the couch, moving toward the hallway that led to the front door. It was wide open. I felt my stomach drop. I knew for a fact I had locked that door. My parents always reminded me to double-check before they left. The wind whispered through the opening, carrying the scent of damp earth. The street outside was empty. Had Jason forgotten to lock it when he left? That had to be it. Still, unease prickled along my spine as I shut the door and locked it twice. I turned back toward the living room, trying to shake the feeling that something was off. That's when I heard it. A soft shuffle. Not outside. Inside. My breath caught. It came from upstairs. I was rooted to the spot, staring at the shadowy staircase. My mind scrambled for an explanation. A logical reason for why I wasn't alone. Jason? No, he wasn't home. Mom and Dad? No, they had just called me 10 minutes ago to say they were running late. So who? Another shuffle. A step. Someone was moving upstairs. I backed away slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. I needed to get out of the house. Call someone. Do something. But then I saw it. The hallway closet door was slightly open, and I swore on everything I knew, that it hadn't been opened before. A sickening fear crawled up my throat. The noise upstairs stopped. The silence was worse. A deep, aching silence, like the house itself was holding its breath. Then, the closet door creaked open just an inch wider, and something inside moved. I didn't stay to find out what it was. I bolted for the front door, my fingers fumbling with the lock. My hands were shaking so bad it took me 3 tries before I managed to yank it open. Cold air hit my face as I stumbled onto the porch. I ran. Didn't stop until I was halfway down the street. Only then did I turn back toward the house. From where I stood, I could see my bedroom window on the 2nd floor, and something was standing there. Not moving. Just watching. Watching me. I couldn't make out a face, only the dark outline of a figure standing where I should have been. And I knew, deep in my bones. I wasn't alone when I locked that door. The police didn't find anything. They searched the house, every closet, every corner. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was broken. But when my parents got home, they noticed something I hadn't. The back door was unlocked. They swore they had locked it before leaving. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what they found in my closet. Not a person, but a sleeping bag. And inside the sleeping bag, an old, crusty sandwich. And an empty water bottle. Whoever had been in my house had been living there for days. Maybe weeks. And I had never noticed.